Imagine living in a world with no pads, no tampons from a store, no painkillers, and no real medical understanding of what was actually happening inside your body every single month. Now imagine that on top of all that, your entire society believed your period was either a dangerous illness, a spiritual event, or something to be hidden in shame. This was the reality for women in ancient Greece, one of the most advanced civilizations of the ancient world, a place that gave us philosophy, democracy, and early medicine, yet still viewed something as natural as menstruation through a lens of fear, mystery, and misunderstanding. So, how did Greek women actually manage their periods with none of the products we take for granted today? What did doctors at the time believe was happening inside a woman's body? And just how strange and sometimes genuinely dangerous were the theories built around it? In this video, we're diving into one of the most overlooked parts of ancient history, the real story of how Greek women handled menstruation, the surprisingly clever tools they invented, the terrifying medical myths doctors actually believed, and the powerful cultural rituals tied to something we barely even discuss openly today. This isn't just a story about ancient hygiene, it's a window into how an entire civilization understood the female body, and honestly, some of it will completely shock you. So stick around, because ancient history rarely gets this personal or this fascinating. Let's start with the practical side, because Greek women, despite having none of our modern products, were surprisingly resourceful. Historical evidence suggests that sea sponges, naturally soft, absorbent, and easily found along the Mediterranean coastline, were commonly used to manage menstrual flow, essentially functioning as one of the earliest natural period products in human history. Some ancient texts also reference small wooden sticks wrapped in soft lint, believed by some historians to have been used similarly to an early tampon, associated with the writings of Hippocrates, the famous Greek physician often called the father of medicine. Cloth and linen rags were also widely used, washed and reused repeatedly, since disposable products obviously didn't exist yet. Because there was no real concept of germ theory or sanitation science, cleanliness relied entirely on instinct and repeated trial and error, much like we saw in earlier prehistoric hygiene practices. Herbal remedies were also common, used to manage cramping and discomfort, with certain plants believed to ease pain long before modern medicine understood why they sometimes actually worked. What's fascinating here is that Greek women weren't passive or helpless in the face of this monthly reality. They developed practical solutions using whatever natural resources were available, adapting real, functional systems to manage something the rest of society barely acknowledged publicly. In many ways, this quiet resourcefulness mirrors a pattern we see throughout ancient history: women solving real physical challenges with intelligence and adaptation, even while operating within a society that offered them very little support or understanding in return. Now, here's where things take a genuinely strange turn, because Greek medicine didn't just misunderstand menstruation, it built entire dangerous theories around it. Hippocrates himself believed that menstrual blood served an important purpose, helping the body release impurities, but he also believed that if a young woman's first period was delayed, blood could dangerously build up around her heart and other organs. According to this theory, this trapped blood could cause fever, wild mood swings, violent outbursts, and even suicidal thoughts, a terrifying medical belief that doctors took seriously at the time. This wasn't some fringe idea either, it shaped how physicians treated young women for centuries, sometimes leading to invasive or frightening treatments meant to force menstruation to begin, all based on a fundamental misunderstanding of basic female biology. Greek philosophy added another troubling layer to this. Aristotle, one of history's most influential thinkers, viewed women as biologically incomplete versions of men, and saw menstrual blood as a weaker, lesser form of the male reproductive substance, a belief that reinforced ideas about female inferiority for generations afterward. These weren't just casual opinions, they were foundational medical and philosophical beliefs that shaped how an entire society viewed women's bodies, health, and even their intelligence and emotional stability. It's a powerful example of how even brilliant, celebrated thinkers, the same minds behind incredible advances in science and philosophy, could be completely dangerously wrong when it came to understanding half the population. But menstruation in ancient Greece wasn't just a medical topic, it was deeply tied to religion, ritual, and cultural belief. Some historical sources suggest that menstrual blood was considered spiritually powerful in certain contexts, with references to spring fertility festivals where blood was symbolically connected to the earth's ability to grow crops, tying the female body directly to ideas of nature, fertility, and renewal. At the same time, menstruation was often treated as a source of impurity in religious settings, with menstruating women sometimes restricted from participating in specific temple rituals or sacred spaces, reflecting a strange cultural contradiction, something powerful enough to be tied to fertility rituals, yet impure enough to be excluded from religious life. This contradiction reveals just how complicated and layered ancient attitudes toward the female body truly were, sitting somewhere between reverence and restriction. Silence played a major role as well. Despite being a completely universal experience for half the population, menstruation was rarely discussed openly, reinforcing a culture of quiet shame that, remarkably, still echoes in many parts of the world today. Understanding this history doesn't just teach us about ancient Greece, it reveals just how deeply cultural attitudes toward women's bodies were shaped thousands of years ago. Attitudes that took centuries, and in some cases are still taking centuries, to fully unlearn.